Yo, what's going on, Noxhat fam? My name is Joe Yim, aka Mighty Joe Yim, and welcome back for another cooking video. In today's video, what I want to do is I want to focus on how to build more flavors in our food. And a lot of times when we're talking about that, we're usually talking about adding smoke to things, which is why I feel like a lot of people enjoy barbecue. There's different types of smoke flavor. For example, if we're talking about high heat cooking, you kind of get a little bit more of those darker, kind of like more smokier flavors. While as if you're doing something on an offset, a little bit sweeter and a little bit less kind of like that robust smoke flavor. When you're thinking about other different types of cuisines or other cooking styles, you know, another way to kind of bump up the flavor and to bring in a little more intensity is to make sauces. Today, what we're gonna do is just cook a simple steak, but we're gonna add a sauce to it. And in order to do that, what I really wanna do is create a really nice stock. You can follow these same exact steps and you can do it inside on your stove and your oven, but today what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be doing outside on the grill. Today, as we're focusing on adding layers of flavor, I mean, gotta use it, right? That'll do it. All right, so let's talk about what's gonna be going into the stock. So this is kind of my version of Chef John and also Adam Ragusia's Demi Glace recipe. Beef shank is a pretty standard one that a lot of people use now because it's a lot cheaper than a lot of other cuts are. And if you get these nice, you know, cross sections, so you get all this nice marrow that's gonna go into that stock. That way, this isn't just taking meat scraps and we're having a really thinned out sauce where it's just kind of like beef and water. The other thing that I'm adding to the stock are chicken wing tips because I did wings the other day and I just kept these in my freezer because I knew I was going to be ready to making the stock. But I also wanted to add something that was going to make our stock a little bit stickier too and make them taste nice and delicious. So we're adding a bunch of chicken feet to this too. I cut off all the toenails right here and that you guys can see nice thick pad on that center of that chicken foot. There's something very similar to barbecue and also stock making where we're taking all these things that kind of throwaway cuts, and at least that's what barbecue was initially. Beef shank itself is very delicious and we can definitely make a great dish out of it. But things like the chicken feet, which if you know how to cook them, they're delicious as well. I really enjoy chicken feet. But the wing tips, you know, you can't really do too much with it. So these are ingredients that we're gonna be working with, and let's go check on the fire and make sure it's good to go. The fire's ready, and the first thing that we're gonna start off with is doing our beef shanks. With any of these pieces that we're gonna do, don't want to burn anything. Anything that's burnt is gonna come out into that stock flavor. So we want to get them charred but not burnt. Especially with these shanks, we want to make sure that we don't melt out that bone marrow because we want to make sure that that is going to still end up in our stock later. We're not trying to cook this all the way. We're just trying to implement extra flavors into it. Just as soon as it starts to release off the grill, I would give them a flip just so they don't stand on one side for too long. Just check for that marrow to make sure that that's not melted all the way through. We got some good char on here, and that's it. Next is gonna be the chicken wings and the chicken feet. So this part we have to be very careful of because they're a lot smaller. So we're gonna have to work a little bit faster. These, I'm just going to throw them all on at one time, and I'm just gonna keep moving them around. Oh, here's a chicken wing right there, wing tip, and that's great. That's what we're looking for. I think this is good. This is kind of what I'm looking for. That little bit of blistering right here. Good color on the outside. So these chicken feet are done. We're gonna pull these off. Okay, here's another technique that I'm gonna use for this one. The wing tips and the chicken feet can be a little dicey because you have to go faster. But hey, great thing about the SNS is their easy spin grate. All wing tips on this side. Oh man, these chicken wing tips smell so good. All right, I think these are ready to go. Now the two veggies that I'm going to be throwing on here with the stock is going to be shallots that I just split in half and carrots. So I'm just going to toss these on so I can create some space for my chicken. Take these shallots off. Got good color on them. All right, guys, so even though we got the char in there, the one thing that It's not necessarily the same. It's not the same as like roasting something for a little bit longer period of time like you would in an oven. Like I would say most people would take those shanks and all that chicken and those veg and just put it in the oven. But what I want to do is still allow that process to happen, but to add some smoke flavor to it. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to turn my kettle grill actually into a basic like a Weber Smoky Mountain right now with a attachment. Give me 1 sec. All right, so all of our stuff is in these 2 pans right here, but I can't fit both pans on this grill. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to put that first one right here. Next, we're going to take this attachment that I got from them to do rotisserie chicken. Use that other grate that they gave us, and then this pan right here will go on top. Still gonna get a little bit of a roasting flavor going on. I thought that was a pretty good idea. The most important thing about this portion or at this time is we had to make sure that these stay in pans because we want to collect all those juices that will start to end up being in there, because if we just left it on the grate, it would just all fall through. So if you guys are going to try this method, make sure you find some containers or like a cast iron or something like that that you know is going to be able to fit in here. Yes, sir. That is what we are looking for. Get that color on that chicken foot right there. It looks delicious. See how the marrow is still intact. It's not all melted out, but it is starting to break down. All those beef shanks are starting to get some really, really great color on there. See the shallots starting to get a little bit more wrinkly just because it's been smoking. It's good stuff, guys. Everything is looking really, really great. Let's get this in a stock pot. All right, guys, here's our stock pot, and yeah, we're just gonna load it up. This is the reason why everything that we do is in a pan, because we gotta collect all those juices. So that's going all in there. Dang, you know what? We might need to get a bigger pot for this sucker. Be right back. Next, we're just going to top this pot off with water just so that it's of all the meat and the veg. After we do this initial first kind of boil of this, that's where we'll have our stock. But if we want to maximize the flavor, we're going to reduce it down even more to create that Demi glossy texture. First, we're going to bring this up to a boil. Once it starts boiling, we'll bring it to a nice low simmer, and it'll go for 5 to 6 hours or so. See you guys tomorrow. All right, guys, so we are on the next step of this beef stock, and I didn't get to record all this next step, so I'll explain what I did. This is the biggest batch of stock that I've made, and I didn't really think about this portion of it, which is cooling down the stock as quickly as possible. I was just a little bit worried that, you know, it wasn't cooling down fast enough, and we don't want to keep that stock in like the danger zone for too long. So, you know, at like 11:30 at night, I ran to the grocery store and bought like 2 giant bags of ice. So I just took the pot, put it in the sink, and dumped a bunch of ice around it, and poured a little bit of water in there just so it to cool down a little bit quicker. And even if you're doing a small batch, I would highly, highly recommend going to the grocery store and, you know, buy more ice than you think you'll need. If you buy a small bag of ice and you dump it and that ice melts really quickly just because the stock is so hot, you don't want to have to make another trip to the grocery store. The other thing that you could do is dumping the ice in the stock, but you're just going to dilute that stock even more. So I would definitely recommend either putting your sink or have a big enough kind of bin where you can put the ice in a little bit of water and then just to cool it down faster. So after I did that, and you just let the pot just kind of sit there, and you don't want to move it around too much. All that fat that's starting to separate on top, if you agitate the pot too much, it can kind of, you know, mix into your stock a little bit, and then later on you're going to have to heat it back up to separate and skim it off again later. So just be very careful about that part, not to move around. So now I'm going to show you guys what the stock looks like. As you can see up top right here, I didn't get all the fat. I'm going to heat this back up and put it into some smaller containers. I can kind of portion it out for different stuff. Alright guys, so with this stock we're going to do, we're gonna make a little pan sauce for a nice fillet. I'll be just really honest with you guys. I don't remember the last time I ever cooked a fillet, let alone eaten one, but I found this really, really nice one at the grocery store. And so I decided to buy it. And just to prep the steak, I just made sure I patted this dry. I put some salt on it, patted it dry again just because it's expelled a lot of moisture. And then I added a black pepper on top of it. You got a nice sear on that one side, and now we're gonna sear the other. Gonna hit the sides real quick. We're not gonna let them rest on these sides as long as you did the other like 2 larger sides, but just enough to get a little more color on the steak. All right, now with the steak, we're gonna put this in a 450-degree oven for a couple minutes until we get internal about 125 to 135. Earlier we had 3 quarts, and we reduced this down to, you know, just over a pint. And earlier it was kind of like a little bit more jiggly and crumbly. This thing is, it is dense, and that is what we're looking for. That's gonna make a really, really good pan sauce. All right, so we're gonna bring this heat back up just a little bit. And to the rest of our drippings, a little bit of oil. We're gonna start with some shallots. Just want to get them nice and kind of like toasted. Now that we got our shallots nice and toasty and brown and caramelized, we're gonna add some wine. Then to that, we're gonna add a small sprig of rosemary and a good amount of thyme. So at this point, we just really want that, that wine to reduce and get nice and kind of jammy. All right, you guys can see just how much it's reduced. Healthy amount of demi-glace. I mean, we worked really hard for this, and even though it does pack some flavor, we also want to make sure we're able to enjoy it also. I just tasted it, so we need to add a little bit of seasoning, so a little bit of salt. I'm gonna add a little bit of pepper. Even though this is super flavorful, the one thing that we have to remember is we didn't use any salt at all in this process of making this demi-glace. Definitely want to make sure that we're seasoning things, you know, as we go. So even though the steak is seasoned, we want to make sure that this is seasoned also. Yeah, that salt and pepper at the end there is perfect. To finish this off, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna strain this, and then we're gonna fold in some cold butter in here to make it nice and velvety. All right, guys, let's give this a try. Oh yeah. I've done something similar to this with just a store-bought beef stock. The depth of flavor is completely different, as well as the texture of it. It's just so, you know, it's so velvety. It just tastes so, I hate to use a word, but it's like very umami-y, meaning it's just so savory. Just the way the sauce kind of clings to it, got a little bit more, so why not? So I guess the ultimate question becomes, you know, with the grilling and the smoking, do I taste a significant difference? Not in the sense of barbecue, but there is a different level of sweetness that I'm getting from this demi-glace that's different than when I'm just roasting in a pan. Here's the demi. I am literally just gonna eat some. Yeah, I would say from that alone, yes, I can definitely taste the smokiness. Not in the sense of a really hard kind of grilled or direct heat kind of cooking, but from this like softer, gentler smoke flavor. And I kind of think about it in the same way where, you know, if you were to take a brisket and just kind of cook in the oven the exact same way, but you eliminated the smoke, the brisket tastes different. It might have the same kind of texture, it might still have the same kind of beefiness, but the smoke really offers a really nice hint of sweetness that's pretty subtle. But if you compare it to something that doesn't have that kind of smoke, I think you can notice it right away. I think because of all the wine, all the aromatics, I wouldn't necessarily say I can taste the smoke in this preparation for it, but would I be able to taste it where if we just took that demi-glace or just left it as a stock and the other day I was just kind of drinking it, like, yeah, you can definitely taste it. It adds another layer of flavor to it. So would I do this again? 100%. All right, guys, so that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, this whole concept is just trying to bridge gaps between different types of cuisine and treating barbecue as a cooking technique and not just brisket, rib, sausage, beef rib, and all that kind of stuff. If you guys have scraps and bones, and if you go to a grocery store and you see some offcuts like chicken feet or hocks and things like that, I would definitely recommend grabbing those things that are super cheap, searing them off, smoking them, making a stock, and I think you'll be very, very pleasantly surprised of how much flavor it adds to all your dishes. That's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to like, subscribe, share this video with your friends, and I'll see you guys in the next one.